Before we start, I want to disconnect the battery, and oddly enough, it's located right behind this fender well here. So I turned the steering wheel all the way to the left. That gives me a lot of clearance in there. And there are two 7mm bolts to be removed. One is right here. And if you follow this up, you'll see another one right here. And right in there, you'll see a plastic push clip. Let's remove that as well. Use a trim tool and pop out the center. These a lot of times will get stuck because of sand and debris. There we go. Pop the whole thing out. And another push clip right down here. And another push clip right here. Pull this fender liner away. And there's the battery. We're going to disconnect this terminal right here. So this right here is the positive terminal. The negative is all the way to the other side of the battery, so you'd have to disconnect a bunch of things, pull the battery out. So I'm just going to disconnect the positive. Usually you'd want to disconnect the negative, but either way, you have two options here. You can either take off the nut right here that holds the terminal onto the battery post. Mine's pretty rusted, and I actually already tried, and it doesn't really want to come off very well, and I don't want to break it. The terminal is not corroded, it's clean, it's just rusty right here. So I'm just going to leave this, and I'm actually going to take off that nut right there, which is what holds the cable onto this terminal. So I'm going to put my 10mm wrench in here, and oops, battery's going to spin with it. Of course, it's not held down properly. Just remove this completely. Okay, there we go. That's disconnected. Take this wire off, and I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to wrap it with a rag. That way there's no way it can make connection to this. Let's remove the wheel. 19mm socket. Remove all 5 of your lug nuts. With this last one, the hubcap's going to want to come off, so take that off, of course, if you have steel wheels and if you have the hubcap. If not, don't worry about it. And remove the wheel. Sometimes they're stuck on like this, and if tapping them doesn't work, I'm going to grab a rubber mallet and hit it from the backside. But before I do that, I want to put on a lug nut for safety. That way the tire and wheel don't go flying off when I hit it. There we go. Remove your safety lug nut and remove the wheel. Right in there, you'll see a 10mm bolt. Let's remove that. And if you look in the lower right corner, you'll see a plastic push clip. Go ahead and remove this as well. Now there's supposed to be a 7mm screw right there in this bolt hole. Mine's missing. And then there's supposed to be a couple push clips there. But then I still have a 7mm bolt here, which I'm going to remove. That's great. Now you can pull this fender liner out. And if you sneak your hand behind there, you can't see it, but there's a 10mm bolt that holds the rest of this splash shield in. Take the bolt out, the shield should come off. Put the fender liner back so that we can work in this area. Now when you look at the belt right here, first of all, take note of how it's routed. I'll provide you with a diagram later when we put it on, but take a picture or take a mental note. And then with a 16mm socket, this is the tensioner bolt right here. Go ahead and pull it counterclockwise. That will release tension off of the belt. You can slip the belt off, and then you can bring your tool up and remove it off of the tensioner. And there we go. And then you can remove the belt. I like to just take it right off, that way it stops flopping around in my face as I'm trying to work. It'll be easy enough to put back on when the time comes. I'm going to go ahead and take this idler pulley off, get it out of my way. That way I can access things better. This is a 16mm bolt as well. On the back of the alternator here, you'll see this connector. Take that off. Take off this plastic cap as well. Let's remove this 13mm nut. And take the wire off. Oh, there's a washer here. Now take the wire off and set that aside. On the bottom of the alternator, you'll see this bolt here, 16 millimeter. Take this off. From the top, you can see this 13 millimeter bolt that holds the alternator on. Let's remove this one as well. Next, before the alternator comes out, we actually have to unbolt the AC compressor. I'm going to start with this bolt right here, 13 millimeter headed bolt. And if you look down right here, there should be another one. There it is. Take this one out as well. I'm going to break this one free with my ratchet first. And right above this one, there's another one right there. Let's unplug the wiring so that we don't put any tension on it. And pull the AC compressor down. Just let it hang like this, or push it to the side. Now you can remove the bolts that are holding in your alternator. I actually just put them back in so that this would be held in place while I take the AC compressor off. And slide the alternator out of its mounting location. There it is. Take your new alternator, slide it up into position. Make sure no wires get pinched. The alternator's in position. I'm going to grab one of the bolts. It's hard to see, but I'm going to start this top bolt in just so that it can stay in place. Next, I'm going to position the alternator on this bottom bracket here, and I'm going to put the bottom bolts through. And on this side, I had one of these captive nuts that has a little tab that gets held on here. That way when you tighten or loosen, you don't have to worry about holding the nut. So I just want to get this started. That's good enough for now. I'll come back to tighten it later. Let's put the AC compressor back. Slide this back to where it belongs. Make sure all of your wiring is located where it needs to be. This wire went underneath here. I'm not going to connect it in yet. There was one at the front, another one on the side here, and another one all the way up top. I'm going to go ahead and connect this connector, make sure it clicks, and let's snug up all these bolts. And I'm just going to come back with my ratchet and make sure all these are nice and tight. All right, let's snug this bottom bolt up first, then we'll torque it, then we'll move up top, tighten up the top one. Both of these bolts get tightened to 40 foot-pounds. There's one. Let's put things back together down here, and then when we move up top, we'll tighten the top one. Let's connect these connectors on the alternator. Put this in, and slide on the main wire, then we'll put the nut on. All right, let's snug this up. Don't make it too tight because you don't want to break this stud internally. All right, that's snug. Of course, don't forget about this cap. Protects it from water, debris, and of course, anything that is grounded can short out against that. I'm going to put back this idler pulley. Torque this to 40 foot-pounds as well. All right, so I'm gonna start at the water pump. I'm gonna put the belt over, and then underneath this idler pulley here, and then over the power steering pump. From the power steering pump, I'm gonna go underneath this idler, and then right up and over the alternator. Then I'm gonna bring it underneath the AC compressor, like this. I'm trying to hold tension on it so it doesn't fall off of anywhere. And then bring it underneath the harmonic balancer, and then it can go over this tensioner. Now because I have a brand new tensioner, there's a locking pin there that holds the tension released for me, but I still have to get that pin out. This is now a 15mm socket. Put that on there, release tension, pull this pin out. There it is. And now slowly let go. And there you have it. The belt is on. You want to make sure that it's sitting in all the ribs properly. I'm going to run my hand across everywhere to ensure that it is not off. If it's off, you need to fix it. All right, this looks perfect. Let's continue. Let's put this shield back on, line it up with that hidden bolt in there. Let's start in this bolt over here first. That way at least this can be held in place. I'm going to come back and tighten it in a minute. Let's put in the other bolt. And the other one is that hidden one in here that you can barely get to. Okay, let's tighten them both up. Get the wheel back on. And if you have hubcaps, go ahead and put them on now because the lug nuts are what hold the hubcaps in. And you have this little cutout here that has to line up with your valve stem. I'll line that up. Automatically your lug nuts will line up with the holes in the hubcaps. Put on all 5 of your lug nuts, snug them up, and torque them to 100 foot-pounds. It's time to tighten this up. All right, let's torque this one to the same torque as the bottom. Perfect. Let's reconnect the battery. Make sure that both the wire and the battery terminal are free of corrosion and rust. That way it can make a good connection. Put this up and over, put the nut back on. Let's tighten it up. Nice and snug. Let's put the fender liner back in place. And put back the 7mm screws. Don't forget about the push clips.